Thank you and good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Right Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Mines and Energy, Deputy Minister, and I know we've got quite a number of dignitaries here, but I was told I will not give my usual long speech because we've got limited time. Let me just see if this one is enabling me to do what I need to do. Okay, great. It works. So thank you very much. So my friend Alvi Bota liked this statement that I just know enough to be dangerous. And I think when it comes to oil and gas, I don't know about the rest of you, but where I come from, I just know enough to be dangerous. And I think that can be said by many of us. Because when we have heard that there's oil and gas, we have already started making our calculation. I wonder how much every Namibian will be getting once the oil is here, and will I still need to work, and what will happen to my children and my children's children. I was planning to have 2, maybe I can afford 5 now. So I don't know which plans you are making, but let's hear. So Namibia has, of course, we at the Namibia Investment Promotion and Development Board, we are driving this message of saying we see Namibia as the sustainable energy capital of Africa. And yes, it is because Namibia has made headlines with our green hydrogen potential that is powered by great solar and wind resources. Of course, the 1,500 kilometers of ocean and the desert that we have, that gives us the resources that we need to produce green hydrogen. But while we are having that conversation, we have come to a new conversation, which is oil and gas. I think we were all pleasantly surprised last year when Shell announced that they have found oil, and then of course Total Energy followed. And yes, Namibia is also the 3rd largest producer of uranium in the world. We have got significant biomass potential, and we can do a bit of hydro. So I say we have got definitely a claim to be an energy capital of Africa. And it will depend on what you and I do as Namibians to make that a reality. So what do we know and what have we heard? So that is what we have heard, that it looks like, unfortunately, what I'm seeing you are not seeing, or are you seeing? Okay, great. You are seeing it? So what we have heard is that oil has been found somewhere there in the Orange Basin. And while that is there by the players that are there, now all of a sudden there's quite a number of players that are looking for potential oil. What we also have heard is that yes, there's significant gas potential, and that takes us back to the 1970s where the Kudu gas was. But then, of course, when we were all celebrating, we have had engagements with the oil company, and they said, before you start counting your dollars, please, and before you start making all the plans, let us just make sure that we understand each other. What are we dealing with? And what are the timelines that we are talking about? And what are the possibilities that we have? And I kind of stole one of the presentations from the Association of Oil and Gas Expert Companies that made the presentation to us. And they said the timeline, sometimes it looks something like this. So you have got data acquisition and you've got the time. So this is not something that happened yesterday. Oil companies have been working behind closed doors, looking at the data. And then of course they did some drilling, and then they found there is something there. And then they are now busy with appraisal. And you can see the probability of success. That when you are in data, you are probably between 0 to 10, and then you move to exploration, and then you can say 15 to 20, and then depending on appraisal, you are between 30 to 50. So we are not at the place where we are saying, when are we starting the production? We still need to do a few things to determine when we will, if and when we will be doing the production. So it's great to be excited, but I think it is important to be also cautiously optimistic as Namibians. But of course, then once the oil, the appraisal has been made and the time has gone, and they say give us plus minus 4 years. I don't know when that 4 years plus minus 2 to 4 years started. Hopefully, it started 3 years ago. Yes. Okay, apparently not. So I don't know when it started, but I'm sure that if you are like me again, the patience is running thin, so that we must definitely grow that patience. And then we come to field development, and then after field development, we talk about production. But then there's also a caution there saying it's not every country that has found oil that has produced oil. And many times it's not about whether it is commercially feasible, there's also other things that can come in the way. And therefore, yes, there is a finding, and then there is commercial amounts. I think what we are understanding or what we are hearing is there seems to be significant amounts, but can they be produced commercially? And commercially means the cost of production. Will that cost be a cost that is manageable to compete with the crude oil, US dollars per barrel at the rate at which it's going currently? And of course, that is what we need to understand from the appraisal. And once that is determined, there will be full production. But then there's also a few things that we can do to stop that. And then, of course, it looks at what do we do from an activism point of view, what do we do from a legislation point of view, what do we do from a collaboration point of view. So there are many things that we need to do in order to make sure that that oil that we say has been found there becomes a reality. So there's work for the oil companies, there's work for government, but there's also work for each and every one of us as Namibians. About this conference, who are the participants, what are the objectives? Let's look at that. We are saying, if this oil and gas is to be realized, and if it is to produce wealth for Namibia and Namibians today and in the future, then we will need the government, we will need the society, whether they are civil or otherwise, and we will need the oil and gas industry to combine hands to come together, because without one of those parties, we will not be able to see the benefits of this industry. And that is why we would like to have a conversation and a discussion where all of us are at the table. The objectives are many. We need to understand what are the potential risks, and of course, the benefits. What are the economies? What is the legal and regulatory framework? What are the infrastructure needs? And I understand infrastructure is especially one of the major drivers of whether this production will be cost effective. Because oil is found deep sea and right far away from onshore Namibia, and therefore infrastructure is currently not there, and we will need to do a lot to invest in infrastructure if we are to make that development a reality. Human resources. Do we have the required skills? Of course, job creation, it will not happen without proper planning. How can we play a role in the value chain? What value chains are there? How do we finance the infrastructure and everything else? And where do we get the foreign direct investment that are required? As you may have seen from the previous page there, somewhere there, the billions that are mentioned there are quite huge, and therefore, looking at our GDP, we will probably need foreign direct investment if we are to make this project a reality. And therefore, all of these are questions. What do we expect to have at the end of this conversation? Of course, key insight around the potential challenges, the risks, and of course, to disseminate information. We will expect the stakeholders to provide input and to make sure that they feel included in this journey. And then hopefully we will come up with a strategic roadmap of what we want to see and where we would like to influence Namibians, all of us from different areas. And after the conference, what happens? What we can do is allow the oil companies to do what they can do best, to do the exploration, and let us know what is happening. So, of course, we are all excited, and we would like to call them every day. Where are we? What is going on with the appraisal? Have we found something more? When will you tell us something? So let us allow them to do what they need to do, and I'm sure that when there is news, they will share with us. Let us prepare ourselves. He said, prepare for rain, If it doesn't rain, then what have you lost? So we need to prepare ourselves as if the industry and the oil will definitely be coming. And that means building the necessary skills. That means understanding the value chains. That means communicating what we need to do. And that means for government creating and enabling legislation. And that legislation in terms of policy, in terms of inviting investors and everything that we need to do. And then, of course, for those of us that are Christians, we need to pray for patience, for wisdom, for favor, for guidance, and for counsel. So there's a lot for all of us to do. So, as indicated, a few minutes that I was given to just share briefly with you what it is that we are going to do for the next 2 days. I'm excited, hopefully you are, but cautiously optimistic, and let us make sure that this journey that we are starting on the oil and gas for Namibia, one day we will look back and say that we remember that first conference that we had after the oil and gas, where we came together as civil society, as Namibian stakeholders, as government, as the oil and gas industry, and had that conversation, and that conversation added value, and today we are here and we are reaping the benefits of this industry. Thank you very much.